Welcome to the MIT at Innovation Program podcast. This is a repository of insights by thought leaders and practitioners of innovation where they speak about their views, insights, and experiences. Come join us.
Today's webinar will have our young innovators share about YBox for the first half hour, followed by questions facilitated by the head of the innovation program, Professor Harshit Desai, in the latter half hour. This is our 14th webinar since lockdown started, and I, Priya Dhawan, Head of Collaborations, Branding and Outreach for the MIT ID Innovation Program, along with my senior colleagues, are grateful to be amongst you all hosting this session today. Please read the chat for further important pointers. We welcome you all once again to this thoughtfully curated innovation journey. Rhythm, we look forward to knowing more about YBox and your innovation journey. Over to you.
Thank you, Priya, for the introduction. And I'm really grateful to have this opportunity today to share my journey and my learnings with everyone here. And I'd like to thank everyone to be a part of this webinar today. And I feel very glad about myself to be joining the innovation program last year. And I think it is by far one of the best decisions that I've ever made. And I say so because there's so much more that I have gained over the period of 10 months now. And so much exposure that we've had in a very short period of time, right? And I think this was something that has really helped us open our minds to limitless possibilities. So I'd like to share a little about my design journey apart from what Priya mentioned. I was very intrigued by the term design right from my early college days. And when I was 19, I interned as a design engineer at a firm in Mumbai, where I was really exposed to the design world, but from an engineer's perspective. So I had this opportunity to assist my senior designer at that point of time, where I contributed to a few projects which were redesigning a dashboard part of Hyundai i20 and a radio body design and a few diabetics equipments. So that's where my journey into design really began. After which I kept on polishing my skills for about a year and a half, and then began freelancing as a product designer while I was still graduating. It was this period where I developed my core into design, learning everything from the basics of sketching, industrial design process, to getting super good at my sketching skills. And I never had a mentor for all this to myself, but so before joining the innovation program, I believed that design was like the godfather of everything. But then just 1 week into the program, I realized it's just a part of innovation, although it's a very important one. And there's so much more that goes into what we call true innovation. And this is probably one of the reasons to one of the reasons why I have gained confidence in my abilities to start a venture of my own today. But of course, there's been too many things that I've learned at the innovation program, which have resulted to form YBox. So talking about my venture at YBox, I truly believe in challenging the ordinary. And this first sparked me during our dash 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 module at the innovation program, where we learned what goes into challenging the ordinary. And of course, it was very difficult to understand all of this back then. But when I look back now, I think it all seems to make sense. What I've figured out throughout my journey is that excellence or standing out is a constant choice that we have to make every single day, right? And we at YBox achieve this by asking the right questions, starting with why. And also the why in the name YBox actually reminds us of who we are and why we exist. It tells us that we exist to challenge the ordinary. So what's the ordinary that we are challenging, right? Well, the question I asked to myself, and a very important one, was why aren't the small companies using the power of design? And design has tremendous power, but when you look at it, design services are expensive and time consuming. And I figured this out after looking back into the history of industrial design, that design processes were only designed with keeping in mind the giant corporates and the bigger companies who had humongous amount of cash flow. Today, however, the scenario has changed with so many new startups coming up and small scale companies. I think the world is changing and there's no design method targeted specifically for the smaller companies. And there has to be a way, a change in the way we design for the new world. And I think that's what has kept me hooked for so long. And with early stage startups and small stage companies, I think it's nearly impossible or maybe quite difficult to hire a design company or even a professional designer for that matter, because of the limited amount of cash flow they have in hand, right? So a lot of good small companies and MSMEs who have really great potential cannot express their values or deliver greater impact. And I'm pretty sure a lot of you all would agree that a good design is good business. This is the problem that I want to solve, a wrong that I want to right, to make design services more accessible and efficient for these small stage companies. This is a very, very small problem that I want to solve. And we are starting even smaller by just focusing on the industrial design and the user experience design to disrupt with. Nevertheless, this is not all that Vibox does. The way we are trying to help small scale companies is by using a very unique business first approach to design, where our primary focus is on designing products or services with keeping the client's business at the center. Of course, there's no doubt about having the users in mind, but keeping the business at the center is our topmost priority, right? And having sort of some experience in using the lean design methodologies, there's a lot that we are experimenting, and there's a need for a lot of improvement into the efficiency of the process. But apart from providing design research, industrial design, and user experience design services, we are also providing services like business design, service design, and innovation consultancies to these small scale companies and early stage startups as our primary focus in the moment. But we are also open to take on projects with the bigger companies. I think the road to extraordinary has to always begin with an ordinary step. And so this is a very ordinary step in that sense that I'm taking. Although I believe that if you want to make a bigger impact in this world, you really have to solve an even bigger problem. But you always have to start small, and there's no replacement for this, right? And there is no right way of doing anything in life. This was one of the first lessons that we've learned here at the innovation program, that there's no absolutely single way to achieve the same results, right? And you just have to keep on looking for it. Being an outsider into the design industry, I say so because I was not trained the conventional way like most of the designers are, because I didn't have someone to tell me what's right or wrong. But what I truly believe is that biggest disruptions have always been done by companies or people who have an outsider's perspective. uh, just to give you an example, back in the days when digital cameras were a boom, Canon thought that Nikon was its competitor, but it was not. The real threat to Canon was not Nikon, it was smartphone brands that provided camera features into the smartphone, right? Likewise, the real threat to the automotive industry was not amongst its many automotive companies. It was an outsider technology company, Uber and Ola, that disrupted their market. And with new rental services coming up like Zoomcar and Rev and DriveEasy, it's just getting worse. So it's really important to have an outsider's perspective whenever you are innovating. Today, I have a lot of my learnings to share with you guys, but because of the limited time that we have here, I've picked up some of my most important learnings that has helped me shape a venture of my own. Questioning has to be an important part of any person's life, and especially if you're willing to innovate. It's the right questions that will help you, not the right answers. And one of the way of finding out how to ask the right questions is to keep on asking a lot of questions, and there's no harm in asking the wrong ones or the stupid ones. The more you keep on questioning, the more you'll get better at this art. As humans, we often tend to think into boxes, and that's how we've been wired, of course. But we generally accept the way the things are around us, and we never question because it's working for us. We've always heard this, that if it's working, don't break it, right? But it's wrong. The world we live in today wouldn't have been the way it is if people never questioned. The change makers of the world, the people who advance the world forward, are the ones who keep on asking endless questions. And what questioning actually does to you is that it helps you discover new possibilities. It helps you explore things that are beyond your thinking, and it opens up the boxes that we think in. And everyone uses the power of questioning, let it be in different contexts or let it be unconsciously, that we may not be aware of, right? Like I said, if you want to create a better impact or a bigger impact, you should question a bigger challenge. Some of the questions that I tend to use in my everyday life, and which you can do, are asking questions like why. And you always have to start with why. That is something that I really believe in, because it helps you find your purpose. It helps you find the root cause of a problem, and there's so much more. The why question helps you with. When the webinar ends, you can open up a chess game or something on your smartphone, or yeah. So what I was saying is that if you want to experience the power of questioning today itself, what you can do is if you're not a good chess player, which I was not, of course, try asking why and so what very often. So if the opponent makes a move, ask yourself, why did he make this move? And what is he trying to achieve? And before you are making a move, ask yourself, if I make this move, so what? And see how good you end up with that game. I believe that the game of chess is not about intelligence, it's about strategy, and strategies cannot be made without questioning. So try this out today and let me know if this works for you. And another quick note for you to try it out right now is to keep asking questions in the chat box right now. So yeah. The second learning, it was learning how to learn for me. And the first time I heard this phrase, learning how to learn, was back in early 2019 before I joined the innovation program. And since then, it has been very strongly attached to me. And I had this opportunity to dive deep into this topic during one of our critical thinking modules here at the innovation program, something that I always wanted to explore. Um, Learning how to learn is such an important skill, I tell you, because it makes you highly versatile to the changing world, right? No matter how the world is shaping up, if you know how to learn, then I think you'll be able to learn anything and everything from scratch and very quickly. I think that's what that will make a difference for you. So let's say, for an example, you're a programmer and you figure out that the user experience design is the next big thing in the design industry. And if you know the skill of how to learn, you'll quickly be able to make a transition as a user experience designer, right? The same goes with any other field. I've never done user experience design before, but because I've figured out how to learn, today I'm also running projects in the user experience domain. The possibilities are endless, and it's upon you to make this choice on what you want to learn. It could be a new skill, it could be some methods, it could be some processes, it could be learning your favorite subject, or it could be learning about how to build a business, right? It could be just anything. And if you master the skill, I think there's nothing that can stop you, both personally and professionally. So figure out how to learn and start small, I would suggest. Once you learn that how aspect of learning, I think you'll be able to learn anything in this world. And there's no one size that fits all. You just have to figure out what works best for you and what doesn't. The most important learning for me personally has been this, and I've learned this the hard way with regret, of course. So we always have this notion of perfecting things, right? And then putting it out into the world. I think that's one of the biggest mistake that we make. It does not have to be perfect. In fact, perfection is just an illusion, and you should be starting now, right now, and putting it out into the world. Then you can always keep on improving. And because improvisation is a process, it's an endless journey, and there's always going to be a room for improvement. If you look back at your work 6 months from now, I think you will be able to find certain areas that can always be improved, right? So the perfection that we are aiming for today will be faded as it turns into tomorrow, right? We need to stop achieving perfection, because it does not matter. In the end, you just have to keep on improving. So let me take you through my personal experience of this. So my team and I were working in the fintech domain as a part of our human-centered design module, and the problem that we were trying to cater was to inculcate a behavior of savings in the low-income family group. So basically, families that are earning not more than 20,000 rupees a month. And so we developed a solution which was called Sambhav, which was a debit come deposit card for the users, where they could start the behavior of savings by saving the everyday change that we get. And the pivot we had in mind at that point of time was to make a digital product for these families, and of course pivoting the income group, because you need to take care of the viability side of a business. So and at this point of time, we were in this self doubt that let us first improve this idea, let's polish it, let's get it validated from people who and experts who are in the fintech domain, and then maybe we can start our own company. And so let's take some more time to think before we hit the market. And I think this is where we went wrong. We did come across a couple of companies that were formed to solve these similar problems. And even more interesting thing that I came across very recently was when I was talking to one of my fintech team members, and he said that one of the ideas that had emerged during the brainstorming session as a part of this fintech project has already hit the market, and the company will be running a pilot very shortly. So what I've learned from this is that you should be starting now and keep on improving every single day, right? There's no point in waiting to achieve perfect results, because you might just end up waiting like we just did. This reminds me of how much important it is to maintain the momentum and the energy that we have when a great idea strikes us. We need to maintain the momentum to make it through, right? Back in my final graduation year, I had this amazing idea of a powerless air conditioner. And being a polymer engineer, it was very obvious for me to look at this problem through a polymer engineer's lens, right? So I teamed up with one of my friends. We had hours of discussion. We met people in the industry. We met a few startup owners, and we did not take any efforts towards making it happen. And it was, in the beginning, it was very electrifying, but I guess we sat on it long enough, and it just happened to turn very cold. But I had this idea when I was driving my car, which was parked under the sun. The idea was great, it had great potential, but I lost momentum. What I realized was that no matter how strong the idea is, if you sit on it long enough, it will turn cold. You must maintain the sense of excitement when you first felt inspired, and back it up with massive action. Whatever the task may be for you, it may be building a house, it may be designing a product, it may be building your dream car, it may be doing some marketing campaigns or building a great business, right? It's important to maintain this momentum and work on this idea until it gets resolved. The moment we lose the momentum is the moment we lose the thread, and our inner critic awakens, we start doubting, and our energy levels will drop. I think the key here is to get moving and keep moving. This is something that I've conquered in my journey at the innovation program, and the reason I'm sharing this with you all today is because the moment I had this idea of iBox, I quickly made a note of it. I wrote it in my idea book. I made a rough business model, and I sent it across to my mentors. I had a talk with them and I started working on it. And since that day, I haven't looked back. I think it's been over 1.5 months now, and we are here. There's, of course, a long way to go, but I'm committed not to settle with the ordinary this time. Before I conclude with this webinar today, I'd like to share my dearest and my deepest learnings or the principles that I've adopted from my mentors and other people who've been outside of the innovation program. Uh, the first up is the chaos theory. And so the chaos theory says that in chaotic complex systems, you have to know that there are underlying patterns, feedback loops, repetitions, self-similarity, and self-organization. I think if you're not in a chaotic situation while innovating, you may be in the wrong place. And we've always experienced this when we were running through the projects. It was also during the fintech project that we were experiencing, and it was always during some of the other projects, the trend forecasting that we were doing. It was a lot of chaotic situation, a lot of mess going around, and that's where we learn that you have to accept that the chaos is going to be a long part of your life, right? Whenever you are innovating, uh, this learning is about making a habit of noting down at least 3 learnings of your day, and you should be discussing it with your friends, your family, your peers the next day in the morning. And so when you will look back at this after 6 months from now, I think you'll have a long list of learnings which will show you how long you've come. And also it's very interesting to know that whenever you are sharing your learnings with your peers, say for example you are working on the same thing and you almost have the same learning, but whenever you discuss it with each other, what happens is you see the learning from other person's perspective. And it keeps you more humble and more down to earth. It shows you there are multiple ways of achieving the same thing, there are multiple ways of looking at same thing. So I think this has been a very good learning of our life. And it's been a good part of our program as well, because we've been doing this for almost more than 6 months now. And it's been a great experience so far. uh, the next is, I'll say it the way it was said to me. The more we learn, the better, and the most we can learn is by doing. And I cannot emphasize any more on this, because you know uh, what I believe is that if you really want to learn how to do a business, you really have to do a business, right? Having a job is also not wrong, I would say, but it makes you smarter. It gives you a couple of opportunities to experiment at someone else's expenses. But what I feel is that if you are eventually planning to do a business in the future, it's a good time to start now, because if you say 5 years from now you'll already have a lot of experience in building a business, then I think you would have by doing a job, right? You can agree to disagree. There's no harm over there. And so it's not also important to know the how aspect of things as much as it is important to know where to use that thing, right? Technology is the big thing right now, and you may be not a techie person, but if you know where to use this technology and where to put it to use, you can always have someone to solve the how aspect. Talking about the questioning tool, if you master it in playing chess, I think you'll be a great chess player, right? If you use it to design products, you'll make great designs. And if you use it to build a business, you'll make a great business. In the end, it's all about where you are using your tools. And I hope I have been able to share some of my valuable lessons with you today, which I've learned throughout the innovation journey. I request to all of you that if there's been a single takeaway for you from this webinar, please do pass your learnings ahead with your friends, your colleagues, or your family members, to whomsoever you think it may be valuable. Over to you, Priya.
Sure, we'll take up a few questions. And Professor Desai, would you like to take it forward, please.
Yes. Thanks, Rhythm, for this fantastic and wonderful presentation. I'm
Yes,
very
sir.
happy to see the kind of things that you have been able to pack them nicely and share it with the audience here.
Definitely.
See, we talk a lot about how do you kind of learn, right? Because that was one of your key learnings, that learning how to learn.
Yeah.
So can you kind of share some light on how did
Sure.
you and from whom did you learn the most? Because
Right.
it being a very fast-paced program, there were kind of courses running after each other, and there was quite a bit of overlap, multiple things happening together. So how did you ensure that the learning is the most effective and efficient in the given time that you were doing the program?
Right. So for me personally, I think what I've experienced is the more you expose yourself to a lot of things in the world, the more you keep on absorbing them. And if talking about skills in that manner, the way I tend to learn skills quickly and faster is that I only take in the best inputs. So if, for example, when I was doing the user experience, when I was learning the user experience design, what I practically did was I took out a few best designs that I've felt for myself, and what other people say are the ones which are making trends right now. I observe them, I copy to do it myself, and in that process I learn how the opposite person or the person who's designed it has done it. And when you know this how aspect by copying the same thing, I think then you can apply this learning to do multiple projects of in the same domain. So
Okay.
I think that's something that I've always been doing. So I hope this is something that answers your question.
Yeah.
Does it?
So I think that's a good way to put it. Another but a similar question is around see, typically design, innovation, these fields are seen to be like creative fields, right? And
Right.
uh, it's often seen as an opposite of being disciplined or being methodical.
Hmm.
So kind of how do you kind of really compare this way of working, that do you feel that discipline and doing things in a particular method is equally important in these fields of design and innovation?
No, sir. Actually, I think that discipline is very, very important in no matter what you're doing.
Okay.
So if you ask me, the discipline that I have is in breaking the things that I always come up with, and it's about defining yourself. It's about changing the lens, the way you look at things, the way you look at other people, the way you look at life, the way you look at the surroundings, and that's how you develop creativity, right? And creativity has to be a very important part of innovation, because without creativity I don't think there will be any innovation. And you really have to be very persistent, very self-disciplined to bring out the best what's inside you, because in the end it is always about you. So and we were never taught that you have to do innovation in this particular way. What we
Okay.
learned at the innovation program was always that you have to find what works best for you. So it was more of discovering our inner self in that sense. And I think that is what brings so much diversity and so much strength in our group that we have right now. And yeah, I think that is something that's more important. So discipline does go with anything that you do in life. You have to have the freedom of thoughts, of course, but for action you will definitely need discipline.
Any particular regime or a routine that you particularly want to highlight, that helped you do things in a more efficient way?
I think I have a habit of noting down my learnings every day.
Okay.
And if there's something that I want to practice, which I know, if say for example I want to be really good at making great businesses, right, having a great business ideas. So what I do is I pick up an idea, I pick up a problem, I pick up a random object, and I try to merge them, I try to associate them. So what it does is that every day when I do it, it exercises my creative fluidity, and my creative juices. And I think, yeah, that's the regime that you want to follow, and it depends upon everyone's motivations and visions. That is what I feel. So
True.
there's no right way, but I think doing something that you want to do every day will definitely help.
Uh, we have a question from Prasanna, and he wants to know that any inputs on effective collaborations, because I think innovation as a field, we know it requires collaboration across different disciplines, both of design and outside of design. So, how would
Right.
you kind of really look at collaborations with designers, with the other outer world to kind of make projects
So
happen?
I think collaboration is something that you know, the first thing that I keep in mind while collaborating is to find like-minded people. Because if you have 10 horses which are running in different directions, then maybe your cart won't move ahead. So you really need to have team members who believe in the same thing as you believe, and team members who have the same vision, the same mindset, and you're able to pass on things very you know, conveniently, without having what I would say. So I think there has to be you know, conflicts between the teams as well, but I think I'm not sure yet. Anything that you would like to add on this?
Yeah, no, I think that's equally important that both a larger alignment towards a common goal as well as a bit of diversity is important for any design and a
Right.
creative activity that's happening as a project. But
Hmm.
specifically about the question that is being posed here is multiple designers with different skill sets. I think, yeah, Nachiket sir would like to add here.
Sure.
Hello.
Yes,
Hi,
sir.
Rhythm.
Hi.
Yes, sir. Hi. Good evening.
Good evening. Good collection of your thoughts.
Thank you,
I
sir.
have one small question for you.
Yeah.
See, you have been speaking about a lot of learnings on a very philosophical way, the
Yeah.
way you internalize it.
Hmm.
I have two things to ask you. One is, can
Sure.
you give an example of whatever specific you have learned with a very
Okay.
specific example? Uh, that is one. And secondly, with your first project which you're doing,
Hmm.
of course, not taking names of the company
Yeah.
because of the NDA, but what was your experience being uh, with your first project, which you were working with a tech startup?
Yeah.
So can you just elaborate on that?
Sure. So I think regarding the first question, the design thinking or the human centered design process that we've learned, I think it was more by doing it and less by reading about it. Um, Even the mentors that we had at that point of time, they used to only come in for 2 days a week, and they used to just review our work. So it was the first week where they, you know, just took us through the whole process, and then we had to do everything on our own, figure out everything on our own, read more about what we should do, what tools we should be using. And I think by practicing it, you know, by going out in the world. So if it was something about interviewing, what how I learned interviewing was, I used to first observe my team members how and what they are interviewing with the you know, customers or the users. And then I would figure out what's gone wrong, what was right, and then I try to do it myself in the next time. And then I take review of my members to, you know, maybe assist me of what's been wrong or what's been right. So I think that's the way how I look at learning, is mostly by doing stuff. I think that answers the question, sir.
Yeah, to an extent, yes. Yeah.
Yeah, all right. And speaking about the current project that I'm doing with a tech startup, I think it's been a great experience so far. That's you know, a lot of experiment that I'm also doing internally and experimenting with the process as well. But of course, having guidance from you, I think it's been something that I've always wanted for so long. I've never had someone to guide me through the complete process like I have from you. And I think we are trying to explore a lot of possibilities for the product that we are developing for the tech startup. And I think it's going to be a good use of my skills, because in the current times it will be very helpful, as the product that we are designing is for the current times. So I think that's about it. Anything you would like me to add, sir?
No, that's fine.
All right, all right.
There's one more question which says that is it important for a UX designer to learn coding?
No. It's not important for a UX designer to learn coding, but you can learn coding, and it's up to your personal interest. For me, I hate coding. I'm not a programmer. I don't know even the C of coding. So that completely works. It does not has to do anything with coding.
Interesting. So I think that's a pretty big debate going on in this world of design and tech, that whether design and coding should go hand in hand, or whether designers should code or whether designers shouldn't code, and there are different perspectives on this. Pramod has a question which says, what problems you think are there in other design agencies which you have tried to modify in your venture? So this is essentially about, I think, the business model of how design agencies operate, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So I don't see any problem in other design ventures as such. They are very great at their place, and there's a lot that I have to learn from them. What I'm trying different is the placement of my venture and the business model that I'm trying to achieve, and the customer segment that I'm trying to achieve. What usually happens is small companies and early stage startups, they cannot afford such huge expensive design and that timeline that it takes for complete design to happen. So what I'm just doing is breaking down the process into small bits and pieces, and then chunk it up to offer it to the small companies. So there's nothing wrong with them. I think I'm just tapping the untapped opportunity as of now.
But in general, in your experience, so what happens, like typically if there is a startup or even a kind of a client that you are dealing with right now, and they are engaging with design for the first time, for example, and they don't know where to go or where to start, or what could be the right way to start an engagement with design. So in your own experience of working with these companies that you are already providing your services to, what are the most critical thing to kind of get it started?
Right. I think one of the most important thing is to first understand what the client wants. If I would have been a designer like who was trained the conventional way, what I've seen is that there's a lot of problem in what they say and what we understand, because the language is the problem, right? The language is the barrier, and for me, being an outsider, I understand what they mean to say and what a designer should be doing. And I kind of try and juggle that thing in between to bring out a solution that works best for them. They are not so, they just don't care about the design process that we do as designers. What they often care about is the product, is the final result. And that is what I feel is the job to be done for them. So you really don't need to go that extra long way, into the process and getting very emotional about design as such. But so it also helps cut down the cost. I think if you figure out what the client wants, understanding his business and his vision and his motivation, I think that will solve a lot of problems for designers.
Cool. Thanks, Rhythm. I think it was a wonderful session to have, including kind of the interesting questions that it spun out into as a discussion here. And I think we'll probably spend some more time in some another webinar where we understand the projects in more detail, where we are able to share the learnings in a even a deeper way out of your experiences here.
Sure, 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 sir.
Yes, Priya ma'am, you can conclude now. Thank you.
Sure. Great. Thank you, Rudram, and thank you, Professor Desai.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Thakur, as well. So for more questions, do reach out to us offline on LinkedIn. A round of thanks to our participants for joining us today, and special thanks to our young innovator, Rhythm Panchal, for his time and sharing bits and parts of his starting journey. We encourage you to connect with us via our social channels to know more about the MIT ID Innovation Program and our upcoming webinars and online courses. Last few seats left for the second cohort of this prestigious program that will fast track your career path. Log on to www.mitidinnovation.com to kickstart your innovation journey with a diverse set of professionals along. So stay connected, stay safe, stay home, and keep innovating every day. Thank you, everyone, and see you around soon.